that were just bizarre and just clear the
Yeah.
floor. And we thought it was great.
Welcome to another episode of Holy Fuck, It's a Music Podcast. Today's guest is a pure rock and roller with a long history of putting out energetic and rowdy shows with his band Screwtape Lewis and more currently Punch Drunk Cabaret. Welcome to the show, Randy. Thank you so much for taking some time to do this with us.
Thanks so much for the invite. I was really a fan first, and then when I got an invite, I'll tell you, I was thoroughly excited. So yeah.
I think you and I have a similar problem, is that we both released an album before knowing a pandemic was hitting. So, for me, I just released it online. I've been putting on some videos. So your new release is called Vampire Anthems. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Tell me about the new album. Tell me what the process was. And I know you had to finish it up, not the way you originally planned. So.
Right. Quite faithfully, we've put out an album every 2 years. Which is always, completely independent. Over the years, it's become more and more completed by ourselves. In the early days, when it came to recording, we spent more time in Saskatchewan than we did any place in Alberta, and that's because we worked with our favorite engineer, Mr. Ross Nikiforuk. So we would book up 10 days straight, and we'd come out there and we would do an album in a really high pressure 10 days. And we did that a couple of times. And then slowly we kind of started to do more things out here, because I'll be the first to admit I hated the pressure of having to finish an album, top to bottom in 10 days. And being the guitar player and the singer, I had my work cut out for me. So it just wasn't, it was enjoyable the first time because it was sort of like, like some ultra marathon or something. But it's not something that I wanted to keep doing over and over again. And so we started doing more out here. And then the last two records we've done here in Alberta. And so, I think like every other, band, we had that discussion. What the hell do we do now? We were one session away from finishing recording. And it's just like, what do we do? And we just said, well, nobody knows what's going to happen here, so let's just continue on. We're going to do what we're going to do. It didn't really seem any point on sitting on anything, because then you would never know whether it caught on. We thought maybe this is a good time to release. There's various things thematically that fit into what's going on right now. So we thought, let's let business as usual. Here we go.
So instead of going and doing an album in 10 days, which I think in some ways must have some merits, because you just get it done, right? So doing it at your leisure, are you guys taking longer to record, and are you tinkering with it more and more? Is it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and good questions. I mean, early on we really, we were really trying to get that kind of real rockabilly vibe, where it was three guys in a room at one time, and we were really going after performances and so on. And yeah, that definitely has its merits. But as a fan of production, I was always disappointed in the sound of the albums, because we used to get comments saying, the thing I love about you guys' CDs is it sounds just like you guys live. Well, yeah. For musicians all know that the board tapes sound horrible. I know it was meant to be complimentary, but the reality is that I came to the conclusion, our reality was that albums it's a different beast than live shows. And so, rather you just can't recreate the live show in an album. So yeah, we started putting a little bit more production into a little bit more ear candy, which I think people are looking for. They expect that, even though they don't realize they expect that. If your album is too bare bones, they'll they'll say, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, and it's normal now, right? Like that style for, especially, and even for rock and roll, is there's lots going on in the background. There's going to be something in there that, again, that added value sort of thing. And but when you write, though, I assume that you do tend to write with the end goal in mind is, well, how are we going to play this on stage, rather than how are we going to record it?
Absolutely, yeah. And that was a huge guiding principle until this album, and then we just decided, we're such fans. Sean and I especially, such fans of well-produced albums that we said, let's do it this way first, and then we'll figure out how we're going to play it. I mean, we were mindful that you don't put 27, guitar tracks on there, and strings and all these kinds of things. We had to pull the reins in a little bit, because we knew that at some point we're gonna play this live. But
I'm not sure if it's like that list for you, but for me, after we're done recording an album, it's like going back and learning how to play a cover. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's your own song, but it's like, well, shit, I can't do that and this, so I got to pick, and maybe what was a keyboard part now becomes a guitar line or whatever. So yeah, you're learning them all over again, which is kind of a pain in the ass.
It is. And just some of those, those really cool, lush things. Lots of stuff that's happening in the background. Sean's he's a real master of having stuff that you maybe wouldn't even hear on the first 10 listens. You just come away going, wow, that song sounds really cool, but there's not everything's up front. Those are the things that you kind of miss. And you just, again, you have to, you come to that conclusion that the stage is just a different beast. You're not Pink Floyd, and so people don't come to the shows expecting you to sound exactly like the albums do. They're looking for, from us, they're looking for something energetic. Now the first thing that goes out the window usually is the arrangement of the song that you just spent 10 months working on, because now you have to do a live arrangement of it, where you do something that's extended, or something, a breakdown, and it becomes visual. And
or you throw a cover in the middle of a song or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. That's great. Yeah.
Well, it's doubly challenging for you as the guitarist too, right? Because you can't play rhythm and lead.
No,
you can't do both at the same time. So
you're jumping between those two things, and plus I'm tied to the mic because I'm singing.
Yep.
So I don't know. This was the first time that we actually discussed the possibility of maybe having some tracks, and I'd be the biggest fan of that, because is there just something that I can just do more running around at the because I don't think it's going to happen, but you can always have it.
So the new album is a little bit, because I came to the Punch Drunk Cabaret scene and Screwtape late, sort of within the last couple of weeks, when Randy said that he was going to speak to you about being on the podcast, which was great for me, because I always like it when you get a new band or a new artist who you get to just sort of dive into. And the new album sounds different, especially that first album, to me, where the first album was really heavily swung. It's super rockabilly and it's super cool. With the new album, it feels like you've gone a little bit more, there's a few more straight songs. And I mean, you still got it in there, like Goth Girls is still, that's got a bit of a swing to it too, but was that a conscious decision to move a little bit into and just try and broaden the sound out a little bit? Was that a conscious thing?
Yeah, well, I mean, you're talking about a 10-year evolution from album 1 to album 5. So it does happen naturally, because you're always looking for new places to go, and I was in an incredibly different place. And the first album I was writing retirement songs, because I had finally after 10 years, Screwtape Lewis had folded. And I couldn't have been happier. I didn't realize it at the time. Usually you're devastated when your band starts collapsing, but I was so fed up with the business end of things, because I ended up, I was always wearing all those hats, and I didn't want to book another show as long as I lived. And I just thought, I'm gonna write songs like in styles that I've never written in before. And I kind of went back to what was the earliest music I heard in the house when I was even before school age, which was my mom's record collection, which was, rockabilly stuff. She was still listening to 50s rockabilly, and there was some swing in there, and there was some country stuff. And so I kind of just got into that headspace, and kind of thought of myself as a bit of more as a songwriter because I wasn't writing for a band, which was really freeing. And
Right.
and so I demoed these things up, and then some former bandmates that I was playing with said, "Well, we got to put a band together around this." I was like, "Oh, do we? We really?" It was like, "Oh man, yeah, people are gonna love this, like this is." So, stupidly as musicians are, it started all over again. And, and like I said, and the idea too was, I imagined myself, I bought this bowler hat, and I was going to wear this bowler hat and just stand at the mic and no more theatrics. And I was going to get really serious about playing guitar because I was playing in this style, this rockabilly style, which might seem simple, but it's actually like rockabilly and swing is actually really challenging. When I was, my guitar style was more like the Edge, and making the guitar sound like anything but a guitar. That's what I had been doing for 10 years. Now all of a sudden it was like, okay, let's get serious about, let's be a real player. No effects, and here we go. And
fewer places to hide, right? And I mean, especially with that rockabilly style, you're playing and this sounds weird, but you're playing a lot of notes.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there, and because you're keeping that rhythm going, but you're playing those little lead licks in there as well. So, especially having to sing on top of that, I can imagine that's exhausting when you're up on stage doing it.
Well, and learning swing chords for me was a whole like there's not a lot of bar chords, and your AC/DC chords, which lots of guitar players know. These were all, I don't know, maybe Randy flatted 7. I don't know what I don't know technically what they are. I forget the names of them, but it was learning Brian Setzer big band stuff, which was, my fingers had never gone in those positions before. I wasn't sure it was possible, and so that was a huge challenge, and it was an excellent time because it was I felt like I was 18 again, and I was rediscovering rock and roll. Again,
listening through the new album, my favorite track on it is the Saints of Saskatchewan. And it's got, to me, it has a real sort of a heavy Bowie feel, and it's almost kind of, it wouldn't feel out of place on the Berlin trilogy. And I was going to ask you, I don't know, was Bowie an influence for you at all? Because a lot of the vocal phrasings, I feel that he's in there somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just huge. And that adds, Bowie was the Bible, in my previous band, Screwtape Lewis. That was
okay.
In fact, the whole band was started because I loved Tin Machine so much. And,
no way.
And the critics hated Tin Machine. It's like, that's when Bowie completely lost the plot. But I thought there was some of it was horrible, but some of it was really cool. And at that time, I just thought, I want to start a band that's the starting point. Yeah, that's a very different song for us because it's 6/8 time, which we've never. It wasn't natural for any of us, but it was natural in the songwriting part of it, and it's just it's a pretty it's pretty bare and vulnerable in a lot of ways, which we're more about facade and show.
But it's a great counterpoint to the rest of the album, though, right? Because I think that's where really good albums, it can't all be one speed. That's, I think it's a criticism that gets leveled at Coldplay, for example, right? You've got to bring people up and bring them back down. You can't just leave them down all the time or leave them up all the time. So find that one and sitting where it is, kind of in the middle of the album. It's perfect. Does that job beautifully. Yeah,
we call that position the palate cleanser position, where it's you've rocked for 5 songs and now you've got to do something. You got to do something different. I don't know, songwriting. And Randy, you can comment on this for sure. Songwriting for me, it's more like just putting up an antenna and you start trying to dial things in and you get what you get. Maybe it's, maybe you get some really killer songs and it's a strong album because of that. And then maybe sometimes you just dialed in some hippie stuff, but that's what you got in the 10 or 12 months that you wrote.
Yeah. I don't know if that happens to you, but for me, I'll write a song that just doesn't fit with my band I'm currently playing with. So I'll have a dozen or so songs all ready to go, that maybe I might do with an alter ego or something. But, like you say, I don't exactly write the same style all the time, and you're always looking for inspiration and pulling from here, pulling from there. So I totally feel you.
Yeah, and then you're right. Then sometimes you just put those songs to the side, and it ends up in another project or something along those lines. And that's kind of how this started out. I had a bit of a dry spell, and some really really poor songs came early on, and then some of the first few tracks that are on this album came out, and I'm just like, I'm not even sure that's this band. And I thought, well, in fairness, I'll share it with the other guys, because they're always, well, do you have anything? What are you writing? And so I'd send out these demos, and I said, I don't know if this is us, but this is what's coming. This is, and I was just like, well, why can't that be us? Why can't we pursue that? And we were off, in a little different direction this time.
What town are you in? Wetaskiwin. Is that where you were born and raised? Is right there?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. Okay,
wow.
Cool. So what was
I tried
growing
to get
up?
out many times. Many times I tried to get out, and I was always sucked back in.
I just spent a small amount of time in Wetaskiwin. It's a fine place, man. So what was music like in your house when you were a kid? Did your mom and dad play, brothers, sisters, or musical household, or what do you?
There was it was very black and white. There was music on my mom's side of the family, and absolutely zero music on my dad's side of the family, and that was seen as an absolutely foolish pursuit. So
Yeah.
So early on, I'd have to get my mom to conspire to drive me to somebody's place for a jam or something like that, or we were finding ways of getting secondhand guitars into the house or something like that. So it was very clandestine and shadowy early on, and then eventually it just got too obvious, and and my dad was more open, tolerant of it. But I mean right up until recent years, he would still he'd still say so what's new, and I'd say, well, we got a gig next week, and then he'd always follow it up with, are you getting paid for that?
Yeah.
It's the only thing that mattered. Everything was.
So your mom enabled your musical desire. So when did you actually start playing guitar then? Or piano or whatever you started first?
Yeah, she played guitar, and then so there were guitars around the house. And then I got some. I started getting serious about it in about, I don't know, the 8th grade, and there was zero people in my school to play with. Nobody. I lived on a farm, so I was isolated. There was no one there. There was no one in school. So I just kind of woodshedded and dreamed that something was going to happen. And then as soon as I got to high school, I fell in with some guys that played, and that was the start of it all. And I think by grade 11 we had formed a band, and we're writing songs, and we were off to the races.
And what were you playing for covers those early days in high school? Just out of curiosity, see if you were playing the same stuff I was.
Yeah, well, it was 80s stuff. I mean, we were playing, Bryan Adams and Loverboy, and the stuff that was on 80s, 80s pop rock that was on the radio, Honeymoon Suite. The weird thing about our band was that the thing is, I was so horrible with learning songs off of records that it sounded like another song. So I just thought, well, I might as well just make it my song, because it doesn't sound like Living After Midnight. It sounds like something really different.
And was singing something that sort of you knew? Did you know early on that I enjoy singing, I can do it? It's something that comes natural, or was that no?
Not at all. No, I just wanted to be a guitar player. I worship guitar players, and that's all I wanted to be. And so in our high school band, I just recruited this jock that looked really good, and that I kind of knew, but I just knew that girls love this guy, and so I just thought, man, if he can just be somewhat tuneful, they'll come and see my band. And so, but years and years of trying to deal with singers, trying to keep them, they all seemed very unbalanced to me. So it was. I learned to sing out of necessity. I was tired of every time the singer quit, the band
Yeah.
couldn't move forward. And so I just thought, well, if I could do both things, it's one less person that I have to depend on.
And so did you, like, getting up on stage for the first time and sort of playing, you know, not just jamming and not just playing by yourself, getting up and playing and getting that audience feedback, was that something that was, do you remember it sort of hooking you immediately, or was it just terrifying, or was it some combination of both?
Yeah, it was both. Because I had two different experiences, and the very first time I played in front of people, it was like at a family reunion sort of thing, and I was just accompanying somebody singing, and I remember just being terrified, looking across the hall at this little dinky stage, and being absolutely petrified. I wasn't sure I could cross the floor to do it. But even being like whatever I was, like, I don't know, probably 13 or something, I had this thought that if I did it once and completed it, it would never be that hard again.
Yeah.
So it's like this watershed moment that it's amazing to me now, just being that young and having that sort of foresight into that whole process. And then after that, the first time I got up with a real rock band, there was no turning back. I knew there were, like, what high could be better.
When I first met you, you were still playing with Screwtape Lewis. So was that your first real serious band where you're like, hey, let's make albums and go out and tour? And
that was what I'd call phase 2 of, my career. My first foray in professional music weirdly ended up in the Christian scene.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, because it's just not something I advertise. I've dropped it from the calling card now because it just wasn't getting any gigs. This was really late 80s, early 90s, and which was a really socially conscious time in modern culture. U2 was huge. U2 was it didn't get bigger than that. And that's the kind of thing that I was writing. I was writing music that was sort of socially conscious. I was writing music that was spiritually searching, and it caught the attention of a Christian record company. But I got to be in real recording studios, and we toured across Canada and the U.S. with big name Christian acts, and toured in Europe, and
oh wow,
and did the rounds and learned about the industry, and so in many ways it was a cool cool way to grow up. I got a lot of professional experience early on, but when that was over, I really had to start over because all my contacts were in that world, which I just had to cut ties with.
I didn't know that about you. That's interesting. Mike plays drums in my band. Did quite a bit of touring with a Christian group as well. And what I always thought was so cool is he was able to play so much. He same like you. They toured all over the States and Canada and played a million gigs. And as a result, he's a fantastic player, not unlike yourself.
Yeah, well, it was weird because when we started Screwtape Lewis, which was late 90s, that was really so. I was already in my later 20s. It was the first time that I played in an all covers band. That's usually what people do in their late teens. That's how they start out. And I was woodshedding songs that that people my age had known for 10 years already. But it was cool because I thought it was so much easier because the template was there. The agent that we had said, learn these 40 songs, and there's this circuit that you'll go out and you'll play, and those people in those bars will love those songs. And I just thought, this is done for you. This versus the Christian thing in many ways was you were always forging your own path. Like we were creating, booking our own tours and so on, and there were no circuits. I don't know. The bars were so much easier. You go, there's a crowd there, and you go and you play these songs.
Yeah.
And everyone loves it. So, and I was saying to Randy, like, it's such a fantastic name too, Screwtape Lewis. You know, so it's C.S. Lewis Screwtape letters. So, were you a fan of? And obviously, with that being that kind of makes sense too, with it being a Christian apologetic sort of rebuttal to Tolkien. Was that sort of that fantasy or philosophical writing? Were you a fan of that stuff growing up too? Like, how did that kind of link into?
No, I
came
to that. Yeah, I came to C.S. Lewis later.
Okay.
You know, sort of through that Christian music period, and you know, I mean, I always liked the more, you know, free thinking, rebellious, you know, it never suited me, the you know, the you know, hardcore evangelical kind of stuff, you know, and that to me, that was always embarrassing, that I was in a scene that was part of it, you know. So yeah, but yeah, those writers and so on, yeah, that was more in my adult years that I came to that.
The attraction of that imagery, though, because, you know, I mean, again, Screwtape, again, the second album, I love that album now. Better, Faster, Stronger. Is that the right way around?
Yeah, Better, Stronger, Faster. Yeah,
Better, Stronger, Faster. Yeah, almost mythic quality to it. So it kind of fits in with it. Feels like that kind of fantasy, sci-fi kind of angle, I think. So. Were you into that sort of? Did you read or watch fantasy or any of that kind of stuff, or is that just completely incidental? And I've kind of made that connection erroneously.
Yeah, no, not at all. No, you know, it's very cinematic. You know, yes. And a lot of the Screwtape stuff was because, you know, I felt that I was more influenced by film, I think, than or as influenced by film as I was by music, and coming out of that Christian thing where essentially, in order to, you know, sort of keep my job, you know, I was sort of pinned down and, you know, and told, you've got to write, you know, essentially, you got to write Christian commercials. You know, this is what's, you know, you're not selling because, you know, your songs don't have the name Jesus in them. You know, so that's what, you know, that's what, you know, that it came down to, was that, come on, man, you gotta sell the, you know, this religion,
the brand,
you know, sell the brand. Yeah. And at that point,
this religion ain't going to sell itself, buddy.
No. So, and that was the point. It was just like, well, I didn't get into it for that. I got into it for, you know, because I believed in what's, you know, and I was working through real issues and so on. I'm not here, you know, that's not what I do. So Screwtape, you know, was kind of a, you know, it was quite a fuck you band, because it was like, it's just like, we're not writing for radio. We're not writing for anybody. It's just like, what can we do to agitate people? You know, it was almost like a giant inside joke, you know, and then we get hired to play like a hockey dance, you know, and then we just start pulling out all these originals, you know, that were just bizarre and just clear the floor. And we thought it was great.
We're having a good time.
We're having a good time. And it was really fun for a decade. And then, you know, after a decade of clearing the room or people not showing up anymore, it was just like, I think this has run its course.
You said something interesting though too, Randy, and it's something that I picked up on. Because you're a designer as well, or a graphic artist, the artwork and the songs, they do feel sort of complementary if it's a package. So I was wondering whether on the creative side, do the songs come and then the artwork comes, or do you think in pictures, and does it all sort of, is it a movie? Like, are you thinking about it in those terms, or is there still some sort of separation between those two processes for you?
You know, I think you're always piecing things together. I think the whole thing is like a giant puzzle, and sometimes you get little bits and they start fitting together, and then you're thinking, well, where is this going? So, you know, sometimes you're chasing it and sometimes you're following it. You know, and I've never created an album before I've started writing, or, you know, or an album cover. That always has to be, you know, informed by what the music. Thank you for that. That's a great compliment, because when being the person that's trying to put those things together, I'm always hoping that they are complementary and that they serve each other. But to someone else might be looking at it and going, I don't know why the hell they came up with this cover, because the music sure said it doesn't sound like that. I mean, it does in my head, but I don't know what.
God, the aesthetic, the aesthetic is completely consistent across everything. I mean, your stage persona, the energy, the albums, the way they look, the way they sound. I think it's part of that. Again, it's like it's what Alice Cooper does brilliantly, right? It's got an Alice Cooper album because it looks like an Alice Cooper album. It sounds like an Alice Cooper album. When they play it, it could only be Alice Cooper. So it's got that same consistency throughout the whole thing. I think it's absolutely fabulous. I love it.
That's great, because Alice Cooper was one of those. When I mentioned Kiss and Queen, Alice Cooper was right in there. I mean, I followed him for years and years. I bought all the albums when he wasn't selling anymore. I was that one kid in Alberta that had all those albums. It was still figure out, hey, where's he going with this? And so I don't know it any other way, because that's just how it came to me as a kid. It came to me as a full package. Queen was a full package, Kiss was a full package. They looked the parts. It was all encompassing. And I was actually surprised as I started playing with people that they didn't see it the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So when we'd sit down, we would talk about our album cover or our stage persona or our stage show. I was shocked that the majority of people said, I don't know, I don't know what should I wear,
For us, we've done some, we're calling them little quarantine jams where we put together, everybody plays their own place, and I kind of put it all together. And you had done you had said that you're not doing any live streaming stuff. It's not a good fit for your band, is what you had said. So how are you staying connected with your fans now? Because we haven't been able to play for whatever it is, 10 weeks now or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We decided, and that was unanimous with the three of us. Is no one was really interested in it, so we're just making more videos. We're doing it through. So a lot of the album we just previewed through videos in whatever way that we could. I mean, we're always looking for ways that we can collaborate with our audience. We've always done that. With this band, we've really always tried to find ways of bringing the audience into what we're doing, so they're participating more with us than just witnessing what we do. So
Cool.
So I guess I think it was last month, or maybe in April, we did a collaborative video in the way that people sent in selfies, sort of based on a theme, and then I cut that together with. I treated it because we sort of had this photo booth theme, and so it's the photos kind of looked photo booth like. And then and then we were kind of playing from home. Well, lip syncing from home, and everybody, then I just cut everything together like that. But I mean, that's it's a cool challenge to try to figure out how you can collaborate with your audience at this distance. We're pretty visual, so let's do a video here or there, and then that turned into a key way that people were finding out about the band. And then we did it enough and got better at it that we started to win awards for it. And so that's really kind of our second. We're always a live band first, but video has become our second go-to. And we thought, okay, if the stage is dark for now, then we're turning to video, and we're just gonna we're gonna challenge ourselves. What can we do with no budgets?
Yeah.
We blew our video budget in February because by hiring a film company and actors and all of that stuff. I mean, it was collaborative in the way that we put it out to friends and fans to be part of the studio audience. The concept of the video is that we play on a goth TV, which is like it's like MTV, but it's it's like all goth, 24-hour goth. And we're and the whole thing it just goes horribly wrong for many. A lot of their stunts go wrong is what happens. It gets overfogged and too much. The fans are too much, and then they try this sort of rain effect that nearly drowns me, and and an audience that's that are really cold-hearted goths that have no interest in what we're doing. So,
Oh, I love the concept.
yeah. Well, there's always a little bit of real life in the concepts, and I'm convinced that that the audience loves to see us suffer.
Yeah.
So there's always some suffering that takes place in in pretty much every video.
So you said you hired a film company. Is that what you've been doing for most of these, or you guys been shooting them yourselves, or like do you shoot yourself, or do
No.
you...
But it comes down to me writing a storyline, and then we agree on it as a band, and then we hire somebody based on that, and then I do a whole bunch of heavy lifting, from building sets and sourcing costume pieces and casting people, and do all of that stuff, so that it doesn't cost us a whole lot of money when the film guys show up.
Wow. So yeah, you really take the lead role in that, and so you write the storylines as well. Hey, because for me, I always find that to be the most challenging. Okay, I want to shoot something, but what? Does it have to follow the lyrics of the song exactly? It doesn't always have to. So what do you always just follow the story of the song, or do you take a different narrative sometimes too?
No, I learned early on that what guides it a lot of times is what resources you have.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, if I had my way and my budget, we would shoot in exotic places.
Of course.
Doing Rio videos, Duran Duran Rio videos. Wouldn't that be ideal? But it's like Don't Die Until You're Dead video concept. We just had something fall through that was going to involve bear wrestling. So I actually tracked down LA prop makers that made these super realistic bear suits that they use in commercials and in nature films. I learned that day that all the bears you see in nature films are not real bears. Some are very high quality bear suits, and they actually have like bear actors that have been trained in bear behavior to act a certain way. So you can't trust anything on TV after that conversation. But
bear actors. That's awesome.
Bear actors. Yeah, imagine. But the whole thing, as you can imagine, it was just too wildly expensive to do it, and so that whole thing cratered. And so I was on the phone with Sean one day, saying, well, geez, what do we do now? And it was towards the end of the conversation. He said, well, if you ever need a hearse, I can help you out with that. Because he was working part-time for a funeral home. And that was the takeaway from the conversation. And so then I just started thinking, okay, well, if we've got a hearse, what could we do with that? And that was the starting point. And so most of my decisions now, they have to be informed by what can I source? What could I find? What locations, are available, to me, and that's the starting point. Because I when I first started out, it was the opposite of we'd come up with some high-minded, like I'm writing for a TV series.
Yeah.
And then you have that first discussion with a director, and it all falls apart because it's like, oh yeah, that's great. Okay, so where can we get those Nazi costumes? And it's like, I don't know. Where can you get a guy to to play this part or something? And then you just realize it's impossible. So
you say just that mention of a hearse. If someone says, "Oh, we can get a hearse," and then you build out from that. I don't know if you know the comedian Tapeface. I think he was on American Idol or something. He's the guy who always has a piece of duct tape over his face, and he's basically mime. And I was listening to a podcast with him, and he said that's how he writes all of his routines. It's either he sees something, he goes wandering around stores, and he'll pick up an object and think,
what can I do?
I can do something with this, or a song, or whatever it might be, and he builds out from that, right? So it's that little spark. And I think you'd kind of alluded to this earlier, and I do love that quote on the Facebook page. I'm going to quote it directly. She said that songwriting is like tuning in an old radio. You point the antenna skyward, twist the tuning dial around arbitrarily, and wait patiently for sounds to come crackling to life. The only control the songwriter has is to shape the sound into something appealing. And I think that really captures that essence of creativity generally, right? It's that thing of none of us know where it comes from. You don't know where that initial spark comes from. Sometimes you can sit down and start plunking away, but at some point something bites. And it's the same thing, I think, with that, right? That hearse, it's like, oh, wait a minute, what if... And where the hell does that come from? Nobody knows where it comes from. So I love that quote, and it's going to be one of my go-tos now when everyone else asks about it. So,
yeah, well, and you know, and it's not necessarily my entire quote. That concept of putting up an antenna and dialing thing. You know, I've heard that before because it's right. I mean, nobody can nail down where this. You know, I mean, you get asked that all the time. You know, where do your ideas come from? And it's you know. Well, you know, which is just it's the gestation of what's ever swirling around. You know, whatever you're taking in. You know, it's sort of like dreams. You know, dreams are they're bizarre and illogical, and it's usually just a big mix of various conversations or experiences or whatever. So the good songs are like that, where it's just you're like, I'm sure I've heard this before. Like I'm ripping somebody off here. I don't know. And you know, just like my cover dates, if you do a bad enough job of ripping somebody off, it sounds original.
So when you talk about that sort of creative process, then, and we sort of said that you write alone, you kind of come up with all the songs, you demo those out. How much input do you look for from your bandmates in terms of sort of adding their own pieces or putting their own flavors into it? Do you have a really sort of preset, I know what the bass sounds like, I know what the drums sound like, or do you just sort of open that up? How does that work for you?
Yeah, but I love collaboration, and so it's really great to take a song where I can't go any further with it, and then turn it over to the guys, and then they, I play to I use a real cheap drum machine, so whatever Sean puts on it is already 100% better. I don't try and program. I don't go that route. I don't try and program drums because I don't want to tell the drummer. I don't have that skill level, you know. But being a guitar player, it's easy to adapt to bass and sometimes I come up with some unique bass parts because I'm not a bassist. I'm not thinking, well, what should the bass do?
Well, it's funny because we've talked to, obviously, because we've been doing these podcast episodes all through the pandemic. So for the most part, well, no one's playing, right? And that's what Randy said. Like he's never sort of gone that direction either. The singer-songwriter, you know, get up and play an acoustic set. And then we've got a buddy who does do that now. And so that, because it is an entirely different beast. Standing up and playing when you've got no one behind you and it's all on you, which some guys can handle, some guys maybe don't want to. But I think it sounds like you really enjoy that playing off each other, right? And having that sort of that shared experience with a band is more valuable than just, you know, having all the glory. Yeah,
well, and you know, I find too that you know, I mean, I'm largely socially retarded. I think all of this is just a giant excuse to get together with two other people and have friendship. You know, I mean, there's no way that we would get in the van together if there's something wrong with us. You know, I mean there's something mentally unstable that we just can't have regular friendships. There has to be this grandiose band in the middle, and then it's okay to be friends and care about each other.
That's funny.
It's I've always said too, you know, for me playing in a band, it's my social life as well as my creative outlet, and you know, like you say, a reason to do something. It's something that gets me out of the house and forces me to go play. And, you know what I mean? Because you're right. I think there's something wrong with this because it's certainly not for the money. You know, I'm not sure how much money you've made, but I haven't made very fucking much.
Well, I'm still living in Wetaskiwin. That tells you right there.
I'm still in Saskatchewan, man.
Well, that's the big city compared to us, though. That's upscale. The social aspect of it becomes even more important, I find, as I get older. And as you get older, you realize that you're like old army buddies, because that's your experience. You know, I mean, this is how we spent our youth. This is how we spend our adult years. Most of us have completely arranged our lifestyles so that we can continue to do this. I mean, it's been an amazing sacrifice. We've centered everything around it. And the good thing about getting older, I've found, is that you get past all that drama and stuff that you had when you were in your 20s and everybody wanted to be the most important guy in the band and the most popular. And now nobody gives a shit about that anymore, you know? And if Teddy was here, our bass player, you know, he'd say his favorite part is post-show. That's when we get back to the hotel room and you pull out those Subway sandwiches that have been sitting all day because you bought them earlier that morning, and you put 3 beers, you know, warm beers in your pocket that you pulled from the rider, and you sit down after the show and say, you know, hey, we accomplished something today.
Yeah, I've never met a musician yet that doesn't like the post show chat, beer, pizza, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that isn't going to be in the band for long.
No,
he's plotting an exit.
Yeah, that's right. He's plotting his exit. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Or your demise. I don't know. He's plotting something.
Yeah.
The more we do this, the more we talk to musicians. And I've never been a gigging musician. I'm a hobbyist, and I thankfully have a very, very good producer who indulges me from time to time. But when we talk to people about that, you said that it's almost similar to old army buddies, and I'm ex-military, and there is a weird sort of thing where you've got a shared experience that even if you don't know each other, you don't have the same taste in music, you've still had that same general life experience that you can just say, we played that bar. Oh no, I remember that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, what's shared with the military is the fact that you're trained for something. You know, you've received some very, you know, although it seems in a band, it's all very, you know, undisciplined and so on. Over time, if you're serious about it, it becomes very disciplined. And, you know, when you're gigging on a regular basis, even if you're just doing weekends, you know, you find yourself getting really awake at like, you know, 9 p.m. or 10 o'clock. Yeah. You know, because you're starting to get into that headspace. And so, yeah, you know, you're all, you know, you're trained for something very specific that does not exist in civilian life.
Yeah, it's not normal, right? It's not a thing that everyone does. Normal people don't get up on stage and put themselves out there and die on their arse some nights and go back and keep doing it and doing it and doing it. I mean, normal people just don't do that.
No, they don't. And, yeah, and especially all the, you know, I mean, the public always sees, you know, the fruits of your labor and because you're selling a good time, but they don't see all the incredible hardships that go on. It's just like, well, why do we do this? But it's so galvanizing, you know. I mean, it's all those hardships that bring you together, and it's an amazing feeling of that, you know, 3 or 4, you know, against the world mentality. That's unique. I don't know where else that exists in the world.
Yeah, I don't know. Team sports maybe at some level, but even that, I mean, that's these days seems to be a little bit more financial than the creative thing is. Let's like say, you know. Because Randy was telling me about, I don't know if you remember this, Randy, about 2 years ago was telling me that he was kind of getting, I don't know if I'm going to keep playing, I don't know. But it's like, no, dude, really? No, you're going to keep playing. Well, what else would you do? There's no way, you know, there's just no way. If you're a songwriter and you're a professional musician, it's in your blood, it's in your bones. You can't really, it would be so difficult to walk away from it, right?
Yeah, but we certainly all have those thoughts, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm in that place, you know, too many times because it just seems, well, because you're trying to justify, you know, we have all these society things that justify why you're doing it. And, you know, you know, that's, you know, not that it's a money thing, but relevance, cultural relevance, you know, as you get older and you're just like, well, who, you know, our style of music it's not that popular, or you know, I mean, it's really tough when you release an album on social media and it's, you know, there's like, it feels like 15 people are interested, you know, but you do something stupid on social media and you'll have 25 comments, you know, on that, or you know, the big thing is an award, you know, I mean, to be nominated for an award, or even to just go to an award show and post a picture that you're at an awards thing, that will light up social media, because it goes to show that that's that's what people, they value that, I think, because of the, all the, America has talent kind of thing, that if you're recognized, or somebody gives you an award, you must be good. And that's that has way more goes into putting an album together. That's work. But so despite all that, it can be pretty defeating sometimes. And at least you kind of look at each other and you say, well, this is what we do,
Yeah.
And so you give yourself purpose, I guess.
Maybe an oddball question. So I had noticed that there's Spanish crops up. I'm pretty sure it's Spanish and not Portuguese in a few of your songs. Do you speak Spanish, or is that something that you just kind of put in as just a little flavor?
That's all the Spanish. I just lay out
all your Spanish is on those records. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think I just did that. I think there's a Spanish in one song on the first album, and I bought this really cool guitar from the 50s when I was in Barcelona one time, and that's really what I wrote most of the first album on. And sometimes I'm sure you've heard that guitars have songs in them, used guitars, and I don't know what, for whatever that sometimes there just seemed like there was some Spanish influence music that came out of that guitar for one reason or another, and it didn't seem right to but literally that was pretty much all the Spanish I knew, those few phrases.
That's awesome. I find that sometimes with opera, when you watch Shawshank Redemption, and there's the bit in the yard where they're playing the two Italian ladies singing, and I don't know what they were singing, but it just hits you. The sound of it is just beautiful. It's like, well, I don't really care what they're saying because it sounds great.
Yeah. I have no issues listening to music. I love listening to music in other languages because it's it's like in artwork. If you put text in it, that's exactly where the eye goes.
Yes.
It's text. They always say text is very heavy, and it always trumps whatever visuals are going on. So sometimes it's the same thing in songs, I guess.
Randy, I'm not sure what it's like in Alberta, but Saskatchewan, we're finally starting to kind of open things up a little, but certainly not live music. I wonder what your opinion is. Like, what do you think is going to be the new normal for guys like us who we need to get people together in a group to listen to us play? What do you think the future is going to look like? Just by your estimation.
That's anybody's guess. I just read an article from they polled a bunch of bar owners in Calgary and in places that we know, places that you probably know. Ironwood and Blues Can and and those go-to places. And the one thing that was unanimous is that they cannot exist on 50% capacity. No. A couple of them tried to do singer-songwriters, and the Gaming Commission wouldn't even allow that at this point. So I don't know. It's the rough ride's going to continue for quite some time. I think Teddy mentioned this in the band the other day. He said, I think the best thing we can do is just survive. It's just when it's all over, we still exist. Because I don't know I don't know how many of these venues are going to be able to keep their doors open. I don't know how much government support they'll continue to receive. We all know those rooms need a lot of people in them for them to turn a profit. It's been this way for a long time. I mean, things weren't good going into the pandemic. Yeah. So I don't know who's going to still exist. I know beyond that, people are still going to there'll still be festivals and special events, which we do more of than anything else, because we saw that the bars it wasn't the best place for a lot of bands to exist anymore, just the way that things are set up. So those will come back because people will want to, they'll want to get together and have functions. My hope, my most optimistic, is that there'll be a resurgence. That we've all really missed each other, and we've realized that there just isn't anything through social media or through technology that has taken the place or even come close to live music. No. And I'm hoping there's going to be a resurgence in the live scene like we haven't seen before.
People have lost their jobs, and we've got to take care of that, and we've got economic concerns and these kinds of things, but what it's really exposed is that human beings need connection. And when you take that away from people, that's actually really what cripples people, is just that lack of belonging and sort of common shared experience. And music and art and culture is a huge part of that. And so you hope that that's recognized and valued as we move forward. So
maybe what will happen is, because we're so forced for things to be device-based, that there'll just be that resurgence in live person-to-person connection. And that's, and I think Randy will agree that that's one of the number one things that have really hurt the live scene, is that people can just sit at home on their phones.
Yeah.
Or at their TVs watching Netflix, or everything. The world has come to them at home, so they don't go out as much. And I think, I don't know if it's any indication what we're seeing with the recent protests and people going out in record numbers to support that. I wonder if part of that, that's not to take away from the important issue that it is, but I wonder if part of that is that it is an avenue for human connection. I mean, the rally in Edmonton is just huge. And I wonder.
I'd say almost certainly. I would say that's almost certainly.
Yeah.
Motivating people with it for sure.
Yeah. And so, and if that's, I notice it just in everyday life with people wanting to visit and giving each other the time of day that usually they didn't. The snowbirds flew over here. I looked up from my upstairs window, and people that were walking down the street stopped to watch. I thought, this is like the 1950s. This is the big event. Something's happening in the sky. I don't know. Is there a softening for human connection? I think so, because you nailed it. It's part of our DNA. It's part of how we're created. So. I don't know. I really hope that music and live events will just have much more value, and they've been devalued. To me, that's the greatest threat in the industry. What's happened to music? Over the years, it's been devalued. It doesn't. Yeah. It's not worth anything anymore unless it has a big brand on it. Unless something is so heavily branded, i.e. Garth Brooks, that people will. He'll sell out 8 nights in a row. But that has a lot to do. The value is because of the brand. Once upon a time, going to shows was the social, people actually used to say that. They used to say, where are the shows this weekend? We want to go see a band. And that's rare to hear people talk like that anymore.
So what we do is we always finish with 10 quickfire questions. They're quickfire questions. They don't have to be quickfire answers. So if you've got sort of any kind of flower or paint or anything color you want to put into anything, feel free. The first one is the age-old question: Stones or the Beatles?
Stones.
Oh, we've got 2 now. That's 2 out of, I think, 9?
Out of 9,
yeah. The Beatles?
Mainly Beatles.
Everybody else was
and
the
one
Beatles,
Wings. What's your favorite thing in your closet right now?
The really great suit jackets that I bought for this upcoming tour that got canceled. Right. That I just look at and I go, one day I will. I can't wear it anywhere else. But I'm excited about the suit jackets that I bought for to support this album. Yeah.
Oh man, suit jackets with your performance style and the energy that you put in, like a suit jacket under the lights. You must lose 6 or 7 pounds on stage every night.
Oh, it's an absolute problem. It only lasts for probably like 3 songs, and then I gotta.
Okay, what song do you wish you'd written?
Well, I thought about this because when you were asking Ross, because there's my brain splits on that because I think of would it be something. One part of my brain, has something like Heroes because, I'd be retired. And then there's like something, really cool, like Hello Space Boy, which, you know, Bowie tune that no one knows, but, you know, I think it's the coolest thing. And, you know, I would be so proud if that was, you know, my work. So, I don't know, almost anything by Bowie, you know, would give me more meaning in life.
It's a tough question for a songwriter, and realize that. And it's the same 10 questions, so if you've listened to the Ross episode, you might know what's coming next then. So which song do you wish you hadn't written?
Which I hadn't written? Oh, yeah. I mean, too many to name. There's always things that you try to get at, and it's just like, the worst though is I've just fallen into the trap where you're trying to write things for a certain reason or a certain audience, and those are the ones that you always regret. They're
a bit contrived, right? Because it's not forcing the issue.
Because you're thinking, you think about a situation that you were in once, and you think, well, geez, I wish we needed a song like this at that time, and then usually that time never comes around again, so the song becomes irrelevant. Yeah.
Sandals or flip-flops? Another divisive issue.
Sandals.
Always?
Yeah, because they stay on your feet. Flip-flops, they slap around. I lose them. I walk too fast with flip-flops.
Very functional, very pragmatic, you know, a view on footwear. I like it.
Yeah, no, they have to strap to my feet, yeah.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever received from a musician?
Jay Semko. And so I got to work with Jay on, I think, the third Screwtape album Jay produced. And and he was all about economy of song. And I never wrote 6-minute songs anyway, but he taught me economy that in songwriting that has never left me. In fact, if you look at some of the songs on the new album, you know, we got 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
And, you know, almost Ramone-like, because that was it. There was no, you chop it down to the essential bits. So that was probably the best. Or the other thing that he told me too is, you know, just ties into the survival thing. He says, you know, just keep doing it because eventually they'll give you a prize for something. So
that's awesome. But I mean, we'll just go off on a little bit. Now, we've talked about this. I talked about this with Randy when we did the very first lead-off episode of this podcast. When I go into Randy with my songs, my little things that I've written, so we sit down and we play through, and then I wait for this sound. I hear well, and as soon as I hear that, it's like I know something's getting cut. I know that either an entire verse is coming out, or you know. So it's like, what's your favorite beer or drink right now? What are you into?
Beer of any sort.
Beer of any sort. So you're pretty close to Lacombe, right? So Lacombe has a fantastic craft brewery, Blind Man Brewery. They do a great pilsner. I can't remember the name of it now. It's an old fly fishing thing. Anyways, great pilsner. If you ever want to try out a local craft beer. What is the best artist or band that you've ever seen live?
Rammstein.
Really? Yeah. What made it so good? What was it?
Oh, well, it was just so bombastic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could feel the heat of, you know, from all the pyro, and I was sitting at the back. I mean, it was like a Vegas show, you know, that was just brought right into Edmonton, and it's over the top, it's opera, it's theater, it's all of these, it's so much mixed into one show. And the other thing that was standout about it was the audience, and that was a full house, and you had people from all walks of life. There was everything from people that had come after work, and they were still wearing their shirt and ties for whatever business jobs they had, to hardcore fetish people and metal people, and it was and there was no aggression amongst people. I mean, it was an incredible bringing together of community for that, for as dark and bombastic as they are. And nobody speaks the language. I mean, none of it should make sense. You know, it should just be an epic failure. You know, you keep watching, a ship go down, and it was just the opposite.
Second last question. Describe your teenage self in 3 words.
Naive, backwards musician.
There's a theme developing with this three words that people pick for sure.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Okay, and so the last question is, who would you most like to perform with, given the opportunity? And that can be anyone, living or dead.
Well, Bowie. I'm not sure I would have the wherewithal to. I could keep it together.
Yeah.
But that would be that would be something.
Yeah, whenever you watch him live, you kind of, it's the same thing when you. And I was never a huge Elvis fan, but when you see him play live, you think, yeah, I get exactly why he was as big as he was. And I think Bowie's that same thing, was just the charisma. It's just his personality fills the entire room, and everyone's just. And same as Freddie Mercury, right? Same thing. You're only looking at one person on that stage, and it captivates people. And you can't buy that. That's just, you've either got that or you don't. So
no, and there's just something to be. And I saw Bowie on the last tour that he was on.
Oh, really?
And it was just that sense that you're in the same room, and you're right. A personality fills a room, and it just becomes. It's just not like. Watching it countless times on a DVD. It's, I don't know. I can't even explain what, I guess it's it's a real exchange of energy between an audience and the performer, and it's an authentic exchange or experience,
Yeah. And you can't fake it. That's something we've been talking a lot about on this podcast, is authenticity. We've all been to bands where, I saw Van Halen in Saskatoon. And Eddie Van Halen comes out, and it was still when Sammy Hagar was with them, and he comes out and he tells, this is the best gig we've ever played, and you just think, oh, man, you've played like Fillmore and the Forum. I know this is not. You don't need to say that, man. Like, come on, really? It's just so.
And he's got the name Saskatoon written someplace
on his wristband or something, yeah,
or on the teleprompter or something like that. So
yeah. Okay, thanks for listening, music lovers. We'll include links in the episode notes, as we always do, to some of Randy's music. So Screwtape Lewis, Punch Drunk Cabaret, will give you some links to some of those songs and the bands we talked about today as well. Maybe some David Bowie will make its way in there. We'll get you directed to the Punch Drunk Cabaret website so that you can go and buy their music direct from the band, because then they get all the money, and none of that money goes to Apple or Spotify or any of those kinds of platforms. As well as checking out their merch and their artwork. You've got to check out their artwork. Randy's artwork is absolutely just top-notch. I absolutely love it. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at HFIAM Podcast. We post regularly to keep you enlightened and entertained. And to lead us out, we'll let Randy have the last word with Saints of Saskadelphia.
When things go black, all directions lost, and there's no turning back. Abandoned at the far end of the hall, a nurse in uniform, pale green paint on the walls, and I'm running out of breath. I am running out of breath. Whoa, whoa, whoa. There were 3 men in 1969. Flew a rocket to the moon by grand design. A greater fear than never seeing home was that only one survives to journey back alone. And they're running out of breath. They are running out of breath. So we call upon the saints. We call if it's all just speculation in the end. We spend our days making sense of the day before. We puzzle at the plot in the aisles of the liquor store. And we're running out of breath. We are running out of breath. So we call upon the saints. We call upon the saints. We call upon the saints of Saskatchewan to sober up.